Never trust a company whose mailbox is full.
Hi, my name is Aaron Tompkins. I'm a toy developer. I'm a toy designer, inventor, packaging, and illustration. I also do sizzle films for toys and pitch films for toys. And I also develop cartoons and puppet shows. I develop Bibles for animated series that cross-platform with toys and then help people pitch them to networks. And primarily, that's what I do. I got into the toy business in the late 80s. At that time, we used to go to flea markets and garage sales to pick up all different types of old vintage toys. Toy collecting really wasn't a thing then, so we were able to get this stuff for maybe 10 cents, 15 cents, and I accumulated a whole library of different toys. We would always be on the lookout for different wacky and weird things I never saw before. And that pretty much led me into the toy business through the 80s, collecting stuff, and then eventually there was a toy design program and I went into that and I learned about how to actually design toys and invent toys. And from there I've been an independent since 1996, an inventor and a designer, package, doing service work for people. And toys have been good to me. From action figures to girls play sets to Barbie concepts to videos for Power Rangers, sizzle videos, pitch videos, viral videos, those type of things. Those encompass all the skills from toy design to illustration, and you put it all together in one video so they can pitch their idea rather than just from a board, which is the old-fashioned way. Here's some stuff from Wonka, Turtles, Pop-Up Video, Tech Deck, Monty Python, Batman, Elmo, SpongeBob SquarePants, and the list goes and goes and goes. There's a lot of this stuff that's totally confidential that I'm not allowed to show anyone because a lot of people invested a lot of money into these ideas. So I'm only really allowed to show the things that have already come to market or that people are no longer interested in. Well, the protocol is generally you receive an email from unknown clients saying they have some job, and then they want to schedule a phone call with you to see if you can handle it. So what I generally do is I'll email them reference images of anything that's similar to what they want to make, so they know that I know how to take care of it. And then I'll schedule a phone call with them and hear whatever they have to say about their product, and then ask them to send me an actual sample of the product so I can review it, check it out, measurements, do all that type of stuff before whatever work needs to be done. If it's development work, doing presentation boards for them to pitch, or if it's actually direct to the factory type stuff. And all these are different layers here, so we can just airbrush our skull guy down, put in some base color on this guy. You'll get in there, pick different brushes to use, whatever needs to be dealt with here, and the flow of the brush, it's all airbrush, And as you can see, it's real quick and fast. And then I would take this sketch over into Illustrator and then make that into the final art. But if I need to just develop some ideas or whatever, I could just do that real fast right here. If I want to develop this skull gentleman. I got into collecting toys in the 80s. I was late in high school, and we used to drive around to garage sales and flea markets and pick up old toys for like 10 cents each, $1 each, old Star Wars toys or G.I. Joes or superheroes. And at that time, not many people were collecting toys. There wasn't an eBay. There wasn't people talking about, vintage toys or whatnot. So we were able to accumulate a lot of stuff at that time. And that's primarily how I got into designing toys, because I accumulated this huge library of vintage stuff, and we would look for weird things and things I never saw before. And those type of things led me into becoming a toy designer later on in life. Well, I started collecting in high school with a friend of mine by the name of Steve Fink. Him and I both started at the same time. And he also has a humongous toy collection, a lot more valuable stuff than I have, which is the more it's in original package, the more valuable it is. So my friend Steve has tons of this stuff in original packages, and we both started at the same time. He also evolved into the toy industry. And through that, we met a whole network of people that were into the same type of stuff as us, vintage toys. And now it's a huge thing. They got TV shows about it, and tons of different collectors in every different area. So there is a huge network of people that are into this type of thing. This room has a little piece of every piece of toy in American history. And if I need to work on a project, I can come up here and try to find something or combine a few things or touch something, some sort of tactile object, and that will enhance my my process with the design process for clients or for inventing or developing ideas. In this case, we have a bunch of oddities, a bunch of one-offs and weird pieces from the 60s and the 70s, things I've acquired through digging in garage sales and what most likely, probably during the 80s and the 90s. In the front here, you can see some Colorform aliens. Those are pretty rare. They came out in the late 60s. They're made by Colorforms during the major Matt Mason time period, and these were aliens from that time period. I got a human skull up here. This is a real human skull. Somebody told me it was from India, a woman's skull. I keep that here to remind me of my own immortality. And I got a little segment of everything. I got an Oscar Goldman in here. I got different miscellaneous TV shows from the Dukes of Hazzard to Star Wars to cereal premiums. A lot of 12-inch figures. I would always collect 12-inch figures anytime I saw one, pre-1989 or 70s. I'd pick up a 12-inch figure at a garage sale. Vehicles, weird 70s vehicles. I'm really into stuff from the, like hot rods and muscle cars from the 70s at that time. All the toy companies were making muscle cars. You won't see that in the current day, but I'm really inspired by a lot of those designs and materials. Of course, Batmobiles and Monkey Mobiles and the Green Hornet, any sort of vehicle that was from a TV show from the 70s or the 60s. And I also really enjoy looking at those. I actually have some of my own figures in here. We made a line of toys called the Swear Bears, and I have some of the action figures in here and some of the prototypes from that line, and just a little slice of everything. Some original sculptures from some of the toy companies, some carded stuff from the 70s. Just a little bite of everything. So it can give you a full meal of visuals. This is one of my favorite items. This is the Great GARLOO, and it's from the 60s. It's big plastic. In the 60s, there was a lot of different robots and monsters, and this one's probably early 60s, mid 60s, and it's one of my, it's probably the best item I do have. And I aspire to get the Big Lou one day, but I'm very satisfied owning this Great GARLOO. The story with the GARLOO is it's not from a TV show. It's not a licensed product. In the 60s, toy companies would roll the dice and they would make characters, and this was a huge Christmas item for them. And it was remote control before wireless. You could see the wire right here, and you could turn it and walk him, and he would pick things up and move around your house, and he was the Great GARLOO. I'm not sure the price at that time, but the price now, obviously in the year 2014, has gone through the roof for this particular item. This is the Great GARLOO. The Big Lou is approximately this large, and it shoots all sorts of different weapons and ping pong balls and darts, and that is the ideal, perfect 1960s toy. That is the top of the cake. That is the icing.
Where will you find the Big GARLOO?
The Big Lou, you won't find. You can find one on eBay for $1,000 loose. You can find them in auctions, specialized auctions, but I don't think you're going to find one just walking around at thrift stores or garage sales or anything of that nature. As well as this item you're not going to find, because anyone who has one of these knows what they're worth. One of the first things I started collecting was Kiss stuff. And in this case here, you could see some Kiss bubblegum cards. that was the first item that I actually got. I was 15 years old and I got it at a flea market, I believe, for $5 sealed. And nowadays you don't find this type of stuff around, but they were all the KISS collector cards, and I got a box of those. And then I eventually got the figures and a few lunch boxes, bubblegum cards, 8-tracks, and I have about 20 or 30 KISS records. So KISS was pretty much the first thing that I started collecting. Here we have some large Star Wars figures from the 70s. I picked up most of these at garage sales or at flea markets, you know, in the late 80s for like $5 or $10, but these are the creme de la creme of large Star Wars figures, and of course the Boba Fett and the IG-88 are the rarest ones. I wish I had them in the box, but I'm thankful to have them loose. In this case, you could see some of the Kenner aliens. These came out when the Alien movie came out in '79. They originally had a dome head and inner teeth. At one time I had 4 of these, but at this moment I have 2. And in front of them you can see the original DR.EVIL from the late 60s. That's from the Captain Action line. Behind me we have some Shogun Warriors and miscellaneous items. I call this my black light shelf. At night I'll turn off all the other lights and everything here will react to the black light. And you can see some Shogun Warriors up here. I got 4 or 5 different dudes. These came out in the late 70s in the USA. They used to shoot projectiles. A lot of kids from the 70s remember these. These were about as big a toy as you could get in the late 70s. A lot of people ask me, how can you get involved with collecting? How can you start from the ground up and build a collection? Well, in today's day and age, there's eBay. Well, that's a lot of competition. My advice is to, in your area, look through the paper and the internet and find church rummage sales, like Jewish rummage sales, neighborhood flea markets where the whole town has a flea market, and be bright and early, because there's a lot of vendors out there. There's a lot of people out there that focus on this type of material to pay their bills. So if you want to be early, you know, the early bird catches the worm, you know. That's my advice, is just to hit the ground running. I wouldn't go towards eBay personally, just because you're going to have a lot of competition. If you go to these flea markets or you ask people personally if they have items, maybe an older uncle or a grandfather, maybe there's some stuff in the attic. You know, it's all about being the Magnum PI. You got to do your research, you got to search it down and find alternative ways to find the stuff that everyone else isn't. Thanks for visiting my toy room. If you want to find out more about my work, you can visit my website, which is www.todesign.com.